Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's SPFBO9 review time. Today I'm going to take a look at Strangers in the High City by J.E. Cabrera. So Strangers in the High City by J.E. Cabrera was a bit of an anomaly as far as my SPFBO9 allocation goes. I requested it on a bit of a whim because the synopsis that was available didn't really tell me anything at all about what to expect from the book itself. That at least has now changed, and there's a bit of information on the book page on the retail and review sites telling readers that this is a story about men and elves and dwarves. It takes place in the Covenant, which was a nation created to bring those three nations together, but by the time the novel is set, it's a fractious nation on the verge of war. Dwarves are used as slaves in the mines, and dwarven raiders frequently attack the outer settlements. There are elements of politics and war here, with the whole thing built on undercurrents of rebellion, which is a theme that, if it's done well, I really tend to enjoy. The story focuses on three main characters, so you've got Gareth, who's a farmhand, Ruxan, who is a stable boy, and then you've got Ulrich, who is a dwarven miner. Outside of those three though, there are a number of other characters who take their turn at the front for varying lengths of time. And I think for the main part, the characters were done quite well. I liked the main three characters, but I think that overall there were too many other characters who did get point of view chapters throughout the book. The majority of these did only have one or maybe two chapters of their own, and I think for me it would have worked better if the number of POV chapters were restricted to maybe four, the three characters I've already mentioned, and then the fourth one being the Mistos Sophia Skyfire. As I think the only female of note in the story, Sophia Skyfire was an interesting if underused character. The Mistos are a kind of legendary order of magicians, and Sophia Skyfire is a young ensign within their ranks, and she's tasked with leading the defence of one of the outer settlements from a raiding party of dwarves. Our time spent with her gives us access to the magic of the world, and it also shows us the tactical acumen and military prowess of her as a character as she sets up and takes part in this battle. The magic of the Mistos is also shown to be a key part in the Order of the Wardens, who roam the land responding to calls for help, and this becomes an important part of the story, so we get a good amount of history and world building through this. I think the overall idea here is quite solid. There's an interesting setting that goes far beyond just the generic secondary world that you do sometimes get. There are lots of different creatures, there's lots of interesting elements of the magic, and there's lots of the actual world that gets explored as well, and the story just builds quite nicely whilst we're doing that exploring. I did, however, feel that in some instances it was a little bit difficult for me to get invested in that story. We start out with the kind of fantasy staple of named chapters, so the chapter title, if you like, is the name of the character from whose point of view it's written, but after a while those chapters themselves start to get split up, so you'll have a chapter where you get a couple of pages of Gareth, for instance, then it'll move on to a couple of pages of Ruxan and then Ulrich, and I don't think the chapters were any longer for this, so I don't feel like we got to spend enough time with any of the characters to see what was really going on. And they're all separate at this point as well, they're all doing their own thing, so it's not like we're seeing the same event from two different sets of eyes either. Now, for all that I enjoyed various elements of the book, I think my main takeaway is the frustration that I had in reading it. There's a lot of potential here in the world building, the story, the characters, but the technical quality of the book didn't do justice to any of that. I buddy read Strangers in the High City with my friend Chad, and we had a very similar experience with it. We both enjoyed various elements of it. We thought that the characters were quite interesting and it had quite a gripping story, even if it could have been a little bit more in depth at various places. But we both found that there were so many spelling and grammatical issues that it started to impact our enjoyment of the book itself. All books will have some errors in them, that's just a fact of life, but when there are so many that it becomes impossible not to notice them, it makes me feel like I'm reading an unedited draft when I want to be reading the finished product. So ultimately it was a disappointing read for me, one that could and probably should have been a lot better and therefore been a lot more enjoyable for me, and sadly with that impact on my enjoyment of the book and with my enjoyment of other books that I've read so far for SPFBO9 being higher, I will at this point call Strangers in the High City a cut from the competition. So this wasn't a bad book by any stretch, as I say. There was plenty of potential here in terms of the overall story and various individual elements of the world building and characters that went into it, but it was let down on the technical rather than the creative side. And I feel like for a competition like this, you do need both the technical and the creative elements to come together quite nicely if a book is going to progress to the later stages. So let me know in the comments down below if this is something that you've read or it's one that you're thinking of maybe picking up. I'll hopefully see you in the next video sometime soon. Until then, as always, take care of yourselves, read some good books. Bye for now.